Careful with that trigger. Sweetheart might snap your arms clean off. The taunt echoed across the firing line just as the Barrett M82A1 thundered. The 50 cal round screamed into the desert air and missed the 2,000-meter steel. The desert sun beat down on Fort Ironvale Training Complex, turning gravel into shimmering glass. Cadets shuffled into formation, rifles slung, sweat soaking their fatigues. Among them stood Cadet Aria Monroe, 24, her black braid tucked under her cover. Too slight, too quiet, she looked misplaced among loud recruits who shoved and laughed like they already owned the range. Major Dale Reynolds prowled like a wolf testing his herd. Most of you won't make it through Ironvale. Some of you shouldn't even be here. His stare pinned Aria. Some of you were brought in to fill quotas. Snickers rippled. Library girl. Hope she brought her glasses. Aria kept her eyes front. She had lived with doubt before. In her cargo pocket rested a battered notebook, filled not with essays but with ballistic charts, mirage sketches, and one line from her grandfather. Eli Monroe, a marksman hardened by Europe's coldest wars. Respect the silence between heartbeats. That's when you fire. Standard drills. 300 meters. Nothing fancy, unless you want to embarrass yourselves. Reynolds barked. Cadets jogged to their lanes. Aria laid out her M40A6, a privilege of those placed on the sniper evaluation track. Her fingers traced the stock. Steady. Familiar. Montana flashed back her grandfather, guiding her hands on an old hunting rifle, teaching her to trust breath more than glass. The first volley rang cracks. Clangs. Dust strikes. Some cadets missed completely. Reynolds muttered over his clipboard. When Aria's turn came, he smirked. Don't choke, cadet. The recoil might knock those glasses off. She exhaled, slowed her pulse, and squeezed. Crack. The distant steel plate quivered dead center. Whispers, lucky shot. She cycled the bolt, breathed, fired again. Crack. Center hit. By the third, smirks vanished. By the fifth, silence owned the range. Aria rose, slinging her rifle. Reynolds' jaw tightened. He despised surprises and hated being proven wrong. Still, when results posted, her name carried an asterisk not cleared for competition fire. She was never supposed to shoot. Hey soldiers, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Hit subscribe and stay locked in for part 2 of Aria Monroe's story. That night, the barracks buzzed with chatter. Cadets argued over cards, swapped rumors, tore into protein bars. Aria sat on her bunk, notebook open across her knees. Numbers filled the page: wind speed, bullet drop, temperature drift. To others, it looked like homework. To her, it was survival. Her bunkmate, broad-shouldered Marine Cole Ramirez, leaned over. You made Reynolds look like a fool today. Careful. He'll make you pay for it. Aria smirked faintly. He already did. I'm benched. Cole shook his head. Doesn't matter. Everyone saw you don't bench the best shot on base forever. The next morning brought live fire drills, 100 meters. Targets shimmered in the desert heat. Crosswinds cutting the range into chaos. One by one, cadets missed. Bullets plowed sand or died short. Reynolds stood smug, arms crossed. This is why half of you don't belong here. When Aria stepped forward, he barked spotter only. Do not engage. On paper, she was still benched, but regulations required every sniper pair to be ready. Spotters carried rifles in case their shooter failed. Aria nodded, dropped prone, and quietly shouldered her M40. Cole hissed, Monroe, you'll get smoked. Crack. The steel target jerked violently. Perfect center hit. The range went silent. Aria worked the bolt, chambered, fired again. Crack, another hit. Reynolds stormed over, Face red, Cadet Monroe. You disobeyed a direct order. Aria met his glare. Calm. Sir, I engaged when my team couldn't. Mission success has priority. Murmurs swept the line. Even sergeants exchanged glances. It wasn't arrogance, it was doctrine. If the shooter failed. The spotter finished the mission. Reynolds' lips pressed tight. He couldn't punish her without admitting she was right. His pen stabbed so hard into the clipboard it nearly tore through. Aria slung her rifle. For the first time at Fort Ironvale, she let herself smile not wide, not cocky. Just enough to say, "You underestimated me. Don't do it again," by mess hall that evening. Whispers had shifted. She wasn't library girl anymore. She was the cadet who hit 1100, but the numbers didn't matter. That night, under dim barracks light, Aria traced her grandfather's words again. Respect the silence between heartbeats. And for the first time, she believed she was ready for more than drills. She was ready for a war of recognition. The convoy rattled across the cracked desert highway, dust boiling in its wake after 2 relentless weeks of drills. Cadet Aria Monroe and her platoon were shipped to Red Mesa, a training ground carved into stone and sand, infamous for breaking reputations as fast as it made them. From the ridgeline, she studied the range sprawled across the desert floor, steel silhouettes scattered across dunes, barely visible against the haze, a lone tower at 2,500 meters, its target plate gleaming like a dare. Cadets whispered about it. No one had ever landed that shot in competition. Major Dale Reynolds' voice cracked across the plateau. Listen well. Today isn't about steel. It's about proving who deserves to wear the eagle. Globe. And anchor as a marksman. Some of you will choke. Most of you will fail. His eyes lingered on Aria. And some of you will watch from the sidelines. She was assigned as spotter for Cole Ramirez Reynolds' deliberate way of benching her without technically banning her. Cole muttered, adjusting his scope. He's scared of you. Aria slid into position. Voice even. I'm just here to do my job. The wind came alive. Dust devils spun across the flats. Heat mirages danced like ghosts. Cole fired. The shot landed wide, slapping harmlessly into sand. He cursed. Chambered another miss again. Reynolds barked, pull him off the line. But Aria's calm voice cut through. Correction point, 3 mil, hold left. Adjust for shear. Cole hesitated. You call it, I'll fire it. Instead, Aria reached for her rifle. As a spotter in the sniper track, she was issued a secondary M2010 ESR standard safety protocol in case the shooter was incapacitated. She laid prone, cheek to stock. Pulse slowed. Crack. The sub 500-meter plate rang like a bell. Gasps rippled through the observation deck. She cycled the bolt, adjusted, fired again. Crack. The 2,000-meter plate toppled, dust exploding at its base. Reynolds charged forward, face crimson. Monroe. You are ordered to spot, not shoot, but before he could drag her off the line. The command tower raised a red flag. Final target, 2,500 meters. Every eye turned to her cadets, officers, even rival teams. Aria whispered to herself. Respect the silence between heartbeats. The trigger broke. The bullet streaked into the haze. For 3 endless seconds, the desert held its breath. Ding! The steel tower shuddered. Echoes rolled across Red Mesa like thunder. The range erupted cheers, curses, disbelief. A cadet not even cleared to compete had just made the impossible shot. Reynolds stood frozen, clipboard limp at his side, for the first time. He had no words. Word traveled faster than any bullet. By sundown, chatter about the Ironvale cadet reached beyond Red Mesa. Officers whispered, reports circulated. 2 weeks later, Aria received a sealed envelope stamped Ironvale Command, restricted. Inside was an invitation, the Specter Trials. Only the top 1% of shooters were called. Fewer still survived. Those who did vanished into black budget units whispered about, but never acknowledged. The compound sat hidden in canyon shadows, guarded by silence and secrecy. Aria stepped through its gates, notebook in hand, knowing this was where her grandfather's legacy would either live or die. Days blurred. Candidates endured impossible drills, night shoots against strobe-lit targets, breath control tests under simulated fire, data book exercises inside storm chambers. Many washed out. Aria stayed. Then came the final gauntlet, a sudden death duel. Her opponent, Major Reynolds. Command had arranged it deliberately. His credibility questioned after Red Mesa. He demanded the right to prove Aria was a fluke. For her, it was the ultimate test. The stage was a wind-swept ridge. Reynolds cradled a Barrett M82A 150 caliber, its reputation legendary. Aria carried her M2010 ESR, lighter, less powerful, but hers. Reynolds fired first. The 50 thundered, shockwave rolling across the ridge. The round clipped wide, shoved off by a gust he hadn't read. He cursed, adjusted. Aria lay prone, notebook beside her. She traced her finger across her grandfather's scribbles. Wind isn't your enemy. It's just another language. She aligned crosshairs on the 1-800-meter plate. Exhale, silence, squeeze, crack. Steel danced, center hit. The spectators erupted. Reynolds fired again, miss. Rage flashed in his eyes. This range doesn't belong to you. Aria cycled smoothly. Neither does doubt. Sir, her second round struck center steel. Clean, unarguable. The duel was over. Reynolds lowered his Barrett, shoulders slumped. The major, who once prowled like a wolf, now looked hollow. Aria rose, lifting her rifle, but her gaze drifted not to the crowd, not to her rival, but to the notebook pressed against her chest. In that moment, a name began to whisper through the Specter compound, Wraith 7. Silent, precise, untouchable. The desert wind had fallen quiet when the duel ended, but inside Aria Monroe's chest, the echo of steel on steel still rang like a bell. Command officers filed their reports. Reynolds signed his defeat in silence, his signature jagged and bitter. The Barrett lay across the bench, heavy and useless now, while Aria's M2010 rested light in her grip, the barrel still warm. That night, the candidates gathered in the mess tent. No one laughed, no one bragged. They simply looked at her, this cadet who had arrived as an afterthought, who had been told not to shoot, who was supposed to sit on the sidelines. Now she was Wraith 7, a name whispered with respect. Aria unrolled her grandfather's notebook, setting it on the table. The pages were worn, corners stained by sweat and time. She spoke quietly, voice steady. My grandfather taught me that silence between heartbeats matters more than the noise around you. Today wasn't about beating Major Reynolds. It wasn't even about the distance. It was about proving one thing, that nobody else decides your worth. The room stayed hushed. Even the officers in the doorway did not interrupt. Aria closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest. You can follow orders. You can respect rank, but never let anyone tell you that you don't belong. If you've put in the work, if you've bled for it, you've earned the right to take the shot. For a moment, only the desert breathed outside, stretching infinite under the stars. Then one hand tapped against the table. Another followed. Soon the entire tent echoed with a rhythm of respect, not applause, but the heavy cadence of fists on wood, the oldest mark of Marine approval. Weeks later, her name appeared on a list posted in the Ironvale Hall, selected Special Marksmanship Program. The ink was official, undeniable. No one could erase it now. Aria walked past the board without fanfare, boots crunching softly on gravel. She didn't need applause. She carried something greater, the certainty that her grandfather's legacy, and her own fight to be seen, had fused into one. Truth discipline can be trained, skill can be sharpened, but belief, the unshakable belief that you belong, that's what makes a Marine unstoppable.